Kitco News special coverage of Paris Blockchain Week Summit is brought to you by Okra, permissioned DeFi composable index and strategy execution platform.
We're now speaking about regulations and the legal side of blockchain with Irina Heaver. She is a lawyer by trade and she is the general partner of Ikigai Ventures and the partner at Keystone. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Irina, your background is law and you are working as a lawyer. This is the first time actually I've had a lawyer working in the crypto side of the show, so I'm excited to talk to you about your work in the space. Let's start by talking about your personal background and how you transitioned from, I guess, well, you told me offline, the oil and gas sector, which has nothing to do with cryptos. You were into the general counsel's role in, for blockchain companies. So non-crypto to crypto, how did that transition take place?
Well, I started my career in oil and gas a long time ago, over 20 years ago.
Right.
And back then, heavy industries like oil and gas were quite lucrative for young lawyers. And I was very happily, from law school, moved into oil and gas companies. It was a great career. I mean, you learn so much. You learn how the technology works. You negotiate production sharing agreements with governments. You also draft laws and regulations for governments before an oil and gas company moves in to start the oil production. So that was such a great experience. And something happened in 2008, if we all remember, the global financial crisis. And I lost my job with a really amazing Australian oil and gas company. And I was so upset. I lost my friends, I lost my job, and I had to leave Melbourne, Australia to come to the Middle East, to work in the Middle East. And I wanted to understand what has caused this global financial crisis, which led me to read everything about, inflation and, the way the government is basically stealing the money away from your pockets. And that led me to discovering gold. I read everything I could find on gold and economics and inflation hedges. I read everything from Peter Schiff, Mike Malone, Rogers, and that's how I turned into a big gold bug. And I stopped storing my earnings, which I was earning in the Middle East in oil and gas companies, and I started saving them in gold because I really understood what governments are doing to our savings in our bank accounts. And then from there, it was a very short leap to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the digital gold. The first time I read the Bitcoin white paper, I completely dismissed it. As a lawyer and as somebody who drafted regulations and worked with governments, I was under a firm opinion that no government will allow for this digital money to exist outside of the financial system, outside of the government regulations. But guess what? I have never imagined the network effect. I never imagined how, here we are in 2022 and there's thousands of people are coming to crypto events. I never imagined we'll get here, but here we are, and that makes me very happy personally.
Okay, you mentioned that Bitcoin is digital gold. Can you explain why you think that?
I mean, just think about the principles are the same, the scarcity, the fact that it's a hedge against inflation, and, all these elements, make you believe that, or you can draw a conclusion that Bitcoin is the digital gold. In the same way you store gold outside of the financial system, in your safe somewhere,
right,
and there is no third-party risk, right? Every time you invest in an asset, for example, let's say a mortgage-backed security, or you have money in a bank account, there's always a third-party risk. The bank can go bankrupt, the mortgages will explode, etc., etc. With gold, there is no third-party risk. You save it you keep it in your safe, and it's there, it's yours.
Yeah.
Same with Bitcoin. You, as long as you store it properly, as long as you have the technical know-how, how to make sure you don't get hacked, there's no third-party risk. One Bitcoin is yours, and nobody can take it away from you.
Okay. Do you still have your gold holdings, or have you converted everything to Bitcoin?
No, I still have my gold holdings.
Okay. Now, the gold versus Bitcoin debate has been going on for years and years, so we won't spend a lot of time on it. I just wanted to get your opinion on this matter. We have people like Michael Saylor who have said that Bitcoin is superior to gold in many, many ways. In the scarcity aspect, you can keep mining gold, but you cannot keep mining Bitcoin to infinity. It's capped at 21 million coins. On the inflation aspect, he argues that Bitcoin has beat gold on hedging against inflation over its history of 13 years. And you can also transport Bitcoin more easily across borders. You can't physically transport gold as easily, of course. On the other side, there are people who argue that Bitcoin has nothing to do with gold, that Bitcoin is really just a speculative asset. It's too volatile to be considered a store of value like gold traditionally has been. Gold has been accepted as a form of money for thousands of years, whereas Bitcoin has not had that history. Gold is also accepted as a currency all around the world, whereas Bitcoin is just starting to see that. So there are two arguments here. Where do you stand?
Look, I'm the type of person, why have one over another when you can have both?
Yes.
Why not have some of your savings in gold, some of your savings in silver? I'm very bullish on silver long term as well, and have some of your savings in Bitcoin. Why not have both? All of these arguments have merit. All of these arguments have some, you can back up those arguments. But everyone has to make a decision for themselves. In my humble opinion, have both. Why not?
Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, let's talk about some of your work in the regulatory space. You currently live in the Middle East, Dubai in particular. It's a huge sector over there, burgeoning crypto sector. The industry is really blossoming, and Dubai has had a big role to play in terms of allowing the crypto space to flourish. Tell us why.
Dubai is a fascinating place. If you're an entrepreneur nowadays in the emerging technology space, you need to be based in Dubai. At least come to Dubai, at least check it out, but and then you will move to Dubai just like everybody else did. So let's talk about history first, because to become a crypto capital of the world, as Dubai is positioning itself to become, you don't just become that overnight. There needs to be a history of developments. For example, let's look at Dubai. First world infrastructure. You jump on a plane, 6 hours, you're anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Africa, anywhere in Asia. Fantastic geographical position. First world infrastructure in terms of internet, roads, living facilities, schools for your children. It's just a wonderful place to live. Also, when it comes to opportunities, if you wanted to have amazing career and business opportunities 200 years ago, you'd probably come to UK, for example. You come to London. That was the financial capital of the world, and the opportunities were there. 100 years ago, you'd go to America, you'd go to USA. Right now, Middle East, Dubai specifically, is where you get your opportunities. And because it's a really young country, huge growing economy, and a hub to African countries, a hub to India and Asia, and also access to Europe and Eastern Europe, huge markets. Also, let's think about it from geography, from the population point of view. We are over 50 million people, if you count the Middle East, including Turkey. And do you know the percentage of banked population in the Middle East? Banked. Yes.
Percentage?
Percentage.
You're counting everybody, right?
Yep.
Including expats, including...
Yeah, everyone. Banked population in the Middle East.
I would say 50%?
14. 1-4.
1-4.
1-4.
No way.
Absolutely. And which is a great opportunity if you're in crypto space, because there are some jurisdictions, there are some countries in the Middle East that don't even have access to banks, like Palestine. The Palestinian people, they don't even have access to banks. So what do? They use crypto as a means of having access to international commerce. What a wonderful story that is, right?
I'm curious as to why that is. Okay, so I've been to Dubai. There's a huge wealth gap between, I guess, the middle class, the wealthy, and everybody else. Do you think that what you just said, the 14% of people unbanked, that are banked rather, is that the elite in Dubai? Is that the wealthy people?
No. I'm not talking about Dubai specifically. I'm talking about the Middle East.
The Middle East, all of the Middle East.
All of the Middle East. So think about the Middle East. What does that include? It includes Egypt, 100 million people plus. they don't have a solid banking system. And even if you receive a salary in your bank account, you will immediately withdraw it and put it under your carpet somewhere. Think about it.
Why? Why would you do that?
Because think about what has happened with the Egyptian pound over the years.
Right.
Think about what has happened with the Lebanese pound over the years. Think about what happened with the Iranian dinar, I think, over the years.
Or just in Lebanon. I mean, I have friends who tell me that they cannot withdraw cash. There has been a bank run, capital flows are stopped.
Absolutely. Nobody believes banking system in countries like Lebanon. And this is just one of the examples. Let's look at Iraq, for example. Do you think they have a working banking system after everything that has happened to people of Iraq? Let's look at people of Iran. How many Iranians are there? 60 million plus, let's say, from top of my head. Please forgive me if there's more. They have been excluded from the international commerce for years and years. What do you think they store their wealth in? What do you think?
Other currencies.
Gold and USDT.
USDT.
Gold and USDT.
Gold makes sense. USDT I didn't know about. Okay.
Iran is one of the largest crypto markets in the world. And we don't know this, right? Because, we're thinking here, and you normally don't wake up thinking about what Iranians are doing with their money, right? You don't think that, but this is exactly what's happening. Let's look at North Africa, for example. Arab Spring happened in 2011. Do you think people trust the banking system very much since 2011? My answer would be no. And not only my answer is no, but the figures and the statistics show us that the answer is no. Dubai is a very special place. Dubai is a little bubble of itself, right? There is a lot of expats. The population is very wealthy. The GDP per capita of the native population is extremely high. So yes, of course, in Dubai, in the UAE, not just Dubai, because Dubai is one of the emirates of the UAE, 7 emirates. Yes, more than 50% of the population is banked. Don't forget, in the UAE and in the GCC countries, in the Gulf countries, there are a lot of laborers. They don't have bank accounts. That's a completely separate issue to address, right? And I'm talking about laborers, those who build the football stadiums in Qatar, and you've heard about all sorts of human rights issues arising of that. And so the population of the Middle East is not homogeneous. Countries in the Middle East are not homogeneous. North Africa has its own issues. GCC countries have their own issues. And then you look at the wider Levant region, has their own issues. But overall, if you exclude Israel, yes, the banking rates in the Middle East are less than 14%.
What needs to happen for, hypothetically, 100% of the Middle East to be banked with either fiat or cryptos? So I'm including the term banked.
Participate in international commerce.
Yeah, to participate in any sort of financial transactions using either a wallet or a traditional financial institution.
Look, I'm not here to advocate for traditional financial institutions.
Okay, let's just go the crypto route then. What needs to happen? So let's say you get the 14% who are currently banked. Let's say you take the other remaining population. Let's say they want or they need to have some sort of crypto wallet. What needs to happen from, let's say, a financial and legal perspective? I
don't think financial and legal perspective is the driver here. What is a driver here? It's education.
Okay.
What is a driver here is a penetration by explaining to the population how to get there, right? Adoption and all of those fancy words you hear at every Bitcoin blockchain conference. But in my humble opinion, education, education, and education. Also, people with lucky like yourself with university degrees, you can read, you can research, and then you can make an educated opinion. An average person in the Middle East may not have, access to the best education, so they need to have access to almost like grassroots educational programs, and there's so many of them going on. For example, in 2014, 2015, when I ran my first Bitcoin meetup, do you know, guess how many people came to my first Bitcoin meetup?
How many?
One
I
person.
was going to guess 20, but okay, why did
One person came to
Was that somebody you already know?
It was absolutely
Yeah.
somebody I already know. It was my friend. I made him come. I twisted his arm. He came, and I tried to my best to explain to him about Bitcoin. He rolled his eyes, thinking, "Oh my God, Irina,
When was this?
2014, 2015." And he thought, "Irina, you're crazy. Can you stop talking to me about this crazy magic internet money?" And he walked off. Last month we had an event in Dubai. Do you know how many people came on day one? 9,000. 9,000 people. So of course, grassroots education is very important. Of course, what you do, your work is very important because you are informing a general population who might be interested in the space, but you're giving them that extra push to jump in. And also think about now, worldwide, less than 3% of the population is in crypto. Worldwide, less than 3%. So we are so early. I mean, it's just ridiculous how early we are.
Think about this, okay, almost everybody in the world has a phone, even if you don't have a bank. I think the stat was like 97% of the population has some sort of mobile phone. Now, TikTok grew from 0 to 1 billion users within 5 years. We're not at, actually, I think more than that, but I think Bitcoin has not reached 1 billion users, not even close, and it's been around for 13 years. One could argue, look, social media is free to use. There's no legal or any financial hurdles. There's no barriers to entry. However, what you're arguing is more education. Even if I were to be educated, there's still some hurdles to adopting cryptocurrencies in my everyday life, right? What are these hurdles? I have a phone. I can download a wallet, get some Bitcoin right now. But why am I not doing that?
Everybody has different hurdles, right? I have, friends who absolutely believe that Bitcoin is complete nonsense and, I'm wasting my life away working in this space. And there are people who earn less than $1 a day, so they probably should not be, spending all their savings, putting in a very speculative asset like Bitcoin. Let's start there first. Bitcoin is a speculative asset, right? So I think everybody has very different hurdles depending where you're from and what is it that you do for a living and your financial situation. My grandmother who's retired, she probably should not be putting her pension money into Bitcoin either, right? It's very speculative.
USDT though.
USDTs, why not? I mean, there's an old, let's say some sort of a stable coin. Let's not advertise any particular stable coin for various other regulatory reasons, which we're all very familiar with. So I think everybody has their own set of circumstances, but also what I also believe it's very it's still very friction. There's still so much friction into getting into crypto. Downloading a wallet. What the hell is a wallet? Right. Understanding how you don't touch the money in your hands. Think about it, I like to bring up my grandmother every now and again. And when the ATMs came out and she got her first ATM card, she took an ATM card and she wrote down the PIN code on the back of her card. And I had to teach her how to use this ATM card several times before she understood. And when I told her not to write the PIN code on the back of her ATM card, she thought, otherwise, how would I remember, right? So she thought I was telling her some nonsense ideas. So there's still so much friction to get into crypto. Yeah. So for an average person, I'm talking about for an average person, not technologically advanced, educated person.
Right. I wonder if it needs to come from the country level first. Let's take El Salvador, for example. What El Salvador has done was airdrop a bunch of wallets, and I think it was the equivalent of $30 USD, 4 million wallets. They've made Bitcoin legal tender. I've talked to Max Kaiser, who lives there now. People are literally buying coffee with Bitcoin. You are forced, essentially, to have a wallet. You are forced, basically, to be educated on what this is, because now your friends are using it to transact. What is the legal framework for a country to adopt Bitcoin? Does that need to happen?
I was born in the Soviet Union and my family escaped from the Soviet Union. So I am personally very much so against anything coming from top down. Okay. I'm very much so personally against, a centralized planning and then everybody in the country are told what to do. Okay. Because I've seen firsthand what happens in countries like that, when, my family lost every single cent of savings and have to, run for their life. Yeah. So I do not believe in benevolent dictators, and I do not believe in, I believe in every human having their own power to make a decision for themselves.
Well, just to be clear, so in El Salvador, you can use Bitcoin if you want. Legal tender means you can transact Bitcoin. You're not really forced to. You can still use the U.S. dollar, which is their native currency. Yeah.
So the legal tender means that if I come to you to buy this very device you have, and I decide to pay you with Bitcoin, you must accept that.
Okay.
That's what it means, legal tender.
Right.
For example, in Dubai, you can buy a property for Bitcoin, but it's not a legal tender. It's just a means of exchange.
Okay.
So that's the difference I'm driving here. For example, a city of Lugano in Switzerland, where I spend all of my summers, they have decided that Bitcoin will be one of those means of exchange, meaning you can pay taxes, but you can also pay in Swiss francs, meaning you can, if the other party choose to accept the Bitcoin, means you can transact in Bitcoin. So they implemented Bitcoin as a means of exchange. And there's so many countries out there who are doing it now. For example, let's look at Russia. More than 20% of the Russian population store their wealth in cryptocurrencies or transact in cryptocurrencies.
Wow.
And it's huge numbers, right? And why is
Russia currently?
Yeah. And why is it huge numbers? Let's look at the history of the Russian ruble, right? Would you store your wealth in Russian rubles, or would you store it in Swiss francs, US dollars, euros, and Bitcoin, right? So the solution is very logical. Ukraine, for example, one of the huge users of cryptocurrencies as well, for exactly the same reason. Look what has been happening. They've had several multiple elections over the last 5-10 years, and the issues that are currently being faced there. So of course, for those jurisdictions, cryptocurrency is a good solution. But I'm generally very much so against when a government tells you what to do.
So I'm getting the sense that you don't want Bitcoin to be legal tender. You just want the governments to allow transactions with Bitcoin or USDT, or whatever you want. Basically, you don't want a government like China saying you cannot transact with Bitcoin. You can do it if you want, but you also don't have to.
I have very little say in what a government can and cannot do.
Hypothetically, if you were to build your own country, how would you design it?
If I were to build my own country, I would build it on the concept of, as democratic as possible. Of course, democracy has all its own issues, but in a way, if a population wants to transact in Bitcoin, let them transact in Bitcoin, and I would model, let me rephrase that, I would model it as Switzerland. In my mind, Switzerland is one of the last remaining democracies in the world. So for example, I live in Switzerland now, and if I were to become a Swiss citizen, every villager where I live in the village will come and have to vote to approve for me to become a citizen, actually raising hands. And that's what is a direct democracy. In Switzerland, every week we have a referendum voting on here or there or there or this, and my husband is voting on that. I'm not voting, I'm not a Swiss citizen. But for me, Switzerland is the last remaining direct democracy. So if I were to build my own Bitcoin country, I would model it from the Switzerland point of view.
Yeah.
You still have to pay taxes because roads have to be maintained. We have beautiful roads in Switzerland. Or alternatively, look at Dubai. There are no taxes in Dubai, but there are very high service fees. For you to use a road, you need to pay a service fee. For you to use, for example, schools are all private and they're very, very expensive. So these are the two sort of options you can play with.
Actually, if you and I want to transact with Bitcoin right now, even if we're standing in China, the government can't do much to stop us, right?
Absolutely, exactly. And that's one of the things that makes me smile when you mention China. China bans Bitcoin twice a year, and they've been doing it for the last, I don't know how many, 10 years. And every time they ban it, there's a bull run. So, and how many times did they try to ban Google? Only once. How many times did they try to ban Facebook? Only once. And they have done it very, very successfully because it's a very centralized business. Yes. Try banning Bitcoin. I mean, good luck to you. I mean, you're not going to succeed, even in a very powerful country like China.
Finally, let's talk about the panel. You're doing a panel here where you have done one here at the Paris Blockchain Summit. Can you give us a synopsis of the topics you've discussed?
Right, so we talked about all sorts of regulatory issues surrounding cryptocurrency and the crimes being allegedly committed using cryptocurrency, such as, evasion of sanctions by Russia, such as money laundering activities. We talked about frauds and the rug pulls. Rug pulls that are happening in the DeFi space, and and the conclusion of the experts was that no, Russia cannot use crypto to avoid sanctions because there's not just enough liquidity for that to happen, and plus it's transparent. You can actually check where the wallets, who the wallets belong to, and you can trace it. And there's also a conclusion that less than 1% of the crypto transactions are actually involved in money laundering and other illicit activities. And fiat, actual cash in your hands, is still the best way to commit crime. So if you out there watching and you want to, do something inappropriate, do not do that using cryptocurrencies because you'll be traced.
As a lawyer, what do you think about privacy coins, like Monero, for example? Do you think those should be banned?
I'm all for that. I'm all for privacy. I believe that privacy is a human right.
But they're being used, they're designed to evade detection and tracing.
Fantastic.
So you can use it
Who is to say that your transactions need to be traced? Why is it my business to know what you spend your $5 on? Why is it anybody's
you
business?
and I both know we want that because I can do illegal things with it.
No. Why? I mean, I'm wearing shoes right now, and I can use the shoes to rob a bank and to run away, or to walk on the street.
You're a
So
very
does
good
that
lawyer.
mean we have to ban all the shoes from now on? I mean, that's just that's
right.
not logical.
Okay.
And I truly believe that privacy is a human right, and in Switzerland, privacy is one of the pillars of the constitution. And the Constitution of Switzerland grants the privacy to me, and I believe that is the right concept. You must know, like for example, you have those gold coins under your carpet somewhere at home.
Okay.
Whose business is that? What you use these gold coins to purchase? Food. Or other sort of items, right?
So then I got to ask you one final point. Government sanctioned digital currencies, central bank digital currencies. So a Fed
Horrible
coin,
idea.
yuan coin.
Horrible idea.
Now the gold coin that you have, the analogy there, that can be traced.
How?
Central bank digital currency. I'm making an analogy. Yeah. The government will know exactly what you do with your
Horrible
money.
idea.
Horrible idea. For whom? Horrible idea for the government or for the citizens?
No. Wonderful idea for the governments, right? Because what governments want, they want the control, and what we've seen over the last 2 years, the controls and the totalitarian regime that has been implemented in countries like Australia, where I'm from, and it just makes me so
Is
angry.
that legal just on a legal framework? Is it legal for the governments to track and to almost dictate what you do with your money?
Well,
Because the government can essentially say you cannot watch Amazon. You cannot purchase Amazon with your CBDCs. You can only purchase Netflix.
even worse, they can say you cannot buy food today because you decided not to submit to some totalitarian rules that were
and they can
implemented
stop you, yeah.
yesterday.
Is that legal?
It's a horrible idea. It is legal. It is, it is. Whatever government says is legal, right? Whether it's morally correct or morally not correct, that's a completely different story. It was legal for Germany to implement all sorts of horrible nightmares on the Jewish people.
I'm not a lawyer, but maybe there's some sort of constitutional affront here.
When I retire, hopefully very soon, it is my plan to take several governments to court for the nightmares they implemented on their people over the last 2 years, which I believe are completely, and I'm talking about the unconstitutional lockdowns and the pandemic measures. I believe those are unconstitutional, but unfortunately I'm in the minority.
Okay, so let's just wrap up with the CBDCs. Though they are constitutional or not?
So each country has their own constitution, right?
Of course.
And the constitution or other legal acts of that jurisdiction grants the powers to the government to issue currency. And those powers can be extended, that the currency is issued in coins, in bill notes, or digitally, right? So theoretically, they are constitutional. But is it constitutional, or is it morally correct for me to prevent you from buying food for your children if you don't submit to some activities that government just implemented yesterday, right?
Well, what's morally correct is often not legal, and vice versa.
Absolutely. And as we talked about in 1930s, it was legally correct, or it was legal for Germany to inflict all sorts of nightmares onto the Jewish people, and we see over 50 armed conflicts happening right now in 2022. Is it legal? Is it moral? My answer is no, but it's still happening. So I think the reality and what is legal and moral are quite different, unfortunately.
All right, well, let's end it there. Great thoughts. Thank you, Irina. Thank you for watching Kitco News. I'm David Lin.
Kitco News special coverage of Paris Blockchain Week Summit is brought to you by Okra, permissioned DeFi composable index and strategy execution platform.